I'm the creator of She Recovers Dance. In 2018, at the first ever She Recovers Silent Disco at She Recovers in LA, I was blown away by the impact that the dancing that evening had on the 200-ish women that participated. The experience was amazing and inspired me to create She Recovers Dance for our community so that they could be inspired and empowered to create their own unique dance in a judgment-free space. So 4 years later, I think about four, we're engaged. We're an engaged community now. We meet weekly. We move together, and the practice, promotes self-discovery, body positivity, freedom, joy, empowerment. We currently have over 1,000 members in our Facebook group, and an average of 20 to 30 participants each Sunday at our online sessions. And I'm really excited because we've just completed the first pilot training for She Recovers Dance volunteer facilitators. And I'm just thrilled to say that we now have 8 of us trained, trauma-informed facilitators who will be helping to lead our sessions and to really engage, more participants and educate our community on bringing the body and movement into recovery. Which brings me to Erica. So this past fall, I began to search for a clinician who could advise and guide us on dance and movement, the best practices and engagement. Erica is a member of our community, and she just happened to have sent her book, Body Aware, to Dawn, which I discovered when I was at Dawn's place. And so I connected with Erica. We had a fabulous chat, and so here we are today. I'm really excited to introduce Erica Hornthal to our community and to formally welcome her to her new volunteer role with the foundation, which is Trusted Advisor, Embodied Movement and Healing. So a little bit about Erica. She is known as the therapist who moves you. She's changing the way people see movement with regard to mental health. She holds a master's in dance movement therapy and counseling from Columbia College and is a board certified dance movement therapist and a licensed clinical professional counselor. She is the founder and CEO of Chicago Dance Therapy and creator of Dance Therapy Advocate Summit. She's also the author of the award-winning book, Body Aware, which I have with me right here. Today, Erica will invite us to rediscover our mind-body connection, stop feeling stuck, and improve our mental health through simple movement practices. She'll discuss her methodologies and techniques in regard to dance and movement as a healing modality. Erica believes that dance movement therapy is a form of psychotherapy that focuses on the mind-body connection, a particular awareness that puts the body in the driver's seat rather than relying solely on the mind. So Erica, we are delighted to have you. Please take it away and share your screen if you are ready to present.
Well, I just want to say thank you for that introduction, and thank you, Peyton, for connecting as we did last fall, even though we connected years prior to that, between life and COVID. People and things come into your life when the time is right, and so I know it's very hard for me, as one of the things I'm recovering from is perfectionism myself, to not force things or go where the energy isn't, even though I'm really invested in it. And so knowing that at some point this would come to fruition, I'm so glad that it is now. I've followed She Recovers for quite a while, and remember meeting Dawn when she was in Chicago. I don't know how many, with COVID, who knows how many years ago that was. But I just want to thank She Recovers for this opportunity and for embracing this quite literally body aware approach. And just kind of wanted to do a few disclaimers before we get started. I like to point out that just like no one can read our minds, even though some people think they can, that no one knows what it's like to be in your body. I think all have some experience with either family members, friends, loved ones, other facilitators, medical professionals, practitioners, thinking they know what's best for our body, especially if they are, quote, an expert in that field. But that doesn't mean that they know our bodies better than we do. And the challenge is that a lot of us disconnect from our bodies, so we don't even really know our bodies very well. And that was really one of my intentions with the work that I do, but also putting out this more mainstream approach to body and mind connection, that when we are able to access it in a safe way, again, safety is in the eye of the beholder, that we can access the power to support our own mental health and speak our needs and move through these places that often keep us stuck in these habits and patterns that are really unhealthy for mind and body, right? So as we go through this, as we move together, do what you need to keep your mind and body comfortable and protected and safe. And if that means going off camera, leaving the seminar for a few moments, stepping outside, getting a glass of water, going to the bathroom, taking a stretch break, whatever that means, practice listening to your body. It's the whole point of the seminar. And if you're denying it while we're talking, then I haven't done my job. So if we can give ourselves permission to listen to our bodies, even through this seminar, then we're on the right track. All right, so what I wanted to do today, I have slides, but they're very general. I really want it to be more conversational and experiential, but these are the things I definitely want us to walk away from. This idea of redefining movement, just the overall benefits of movement for mental health, particularly outside of exercise, because we tend to focus and hear mostly about exercise. And then we'll experience a little bit together how to use movement to support our mental health. Again, outside of exercise specifically. So I already had a lovely introduction. I don't think you guys need to know too much more about me. But I do like to offer just a little bit of how I got into the work that I do. I grew up dancing mostly for fun as a hobby. I was never really a professional dancer, not a competitive dancer by any means. But it was just such a passion, and I have such a love for moving my body and, picking up a piece of choreography, dancing expressively to a good song or sound of music. And as I was going through school and college and looking for what I wanted to do with my career, I was also very drawn to helping people. And I always thought that that would be medical, a nurse or I don't know, somewhere in the medical field, maybe not a doctor, but certainly a nurse. I love being there for people, talking to people, helping people, until I realized that I wasn't so good with the bodily fluids, if you will. And I thought, well, I can't clean up those messes, but what about our emotional messes, right? We all have them. I know I have them. And I really wanted to be there for people in their emotions, help them connect it, help them be more present. And it was a professor guide, if you will, that told me about the field of dance therapy, where basically I could marry my love for dance and movement with my passion for helping people, listening to people, and really kind of helping them get unstuck, right? I don't have the answers, but it's about facilitating you finding what your answers are. And so I say that because, I'm not here as a professional dancer. I love to dance, but none of my clients would consider themselves dancers. Dance is the language of the body. It's the language of the soul. And as what Peyton was talking about with that 200-person silent disco, I guarantee that most of those people didn't consider themselves dancers. But when we have stuff, when we have stuff to say and we don't have the words to say it, that's when we turn to our bodies. And oftentimes our bodies will do the talking for us. We just have to give it the space, and we have to provide the opportunity to listen. So that's what I'm here for. And hopefully to provide a little bit of insight on how you can do that for yourselves. All right, so very briefly, this is kind of how I start the whole bodyware approach. And this actually came from working a lot with individuals who cognitively could not access their verbal language, either because of traumatic brain injury, cognitive impairment, memory impairment like dementia or an Alzheimer's. And I realized that my definition of movement was not meeting their needs, and would just start asking the question, how are you moving today? So maybe some of you in the chat or watching on Facebook can answer that for yourselves. If you feel like putting it in the chat and sharing it with us, let us know how you're moving today in this moment. What are you noticing about your movement? Maybe even defining for yourselves what is movement. It doesn't have to be a long sentence, a few words here or there, maybe the first thing that comes to your mind. But how do you define movement for yourself before we go into redefining it? What does that look like? And again, we are not sharing names, so any comments or that we share are anonymous. So if you want to say them, please do. Let's take a moment, kind of notice how you're sitting, how you're feeling, how you're moving. Breathing, that's a big one. We are all doing that, otherwise we wouldn't be here. But thank you for that reminder. Sluggish. So I appreciate the quality. Oftentimes we don't talk about or notice the qualities of our movement. Am I moving fast? Am I jittery? Am I bound? Am I tight? Feeling like a Monday. Oh, you don't even have to put words to that. Easing in, slow, multitasking mentally right now. Yeah, sounds like something we all attempt to do, right? Intentional. Yeah, that like our movement can be intentional or unintentional or involuntary. Oh, I appreciate the word oscillating. Oscillating in front of the computer. Tend to think of my movement throughout the whole day, how it averages out. Great. Yeah, so we can kind of see it as an averaging, right, of all of the movement that we've done. Keep in mind that some of us qualify it, right? I'm not moving well. This is bad. This is good. Right? We judge our movement so much. Stretching and breathing. This is making me think about moving more. There you go. Just thinking about it, right? Is like, have I moved today? What am I doing? One individual said on the elliptical, doing cardio, practicing yoga. Right. So we can think about exercise, and that's okay. We're going to broaden our horizons so that we see movement as not just exercise, but yes, any ways that you might exercise: walking, jogging, running, stretching, weight training, strength training, singing. Thank you for adding that. Singing is movement. It's vocal cord movement, right? It's vibrations. And actually, singing and humming are one of the best ways to tone the vagus nerve, which, if you're not familiar with, is very popular in trauma therapy right now. It's this huge bundle of nerves throughout our body that actually helps to regulate our nervous system, in particular our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the thing that allows us to rest and digest, right? So like, you don't have to have a good voice. You can do it in the shower or car when no one's listening. But yeah, engaging our vocal cords can be super helpful for movement and mental health. Okay, we could do this forever. These are great examples. Thank you, everybody. So as you're probably noticing, you have your own definition of what movement is. And if you don't do it, sometimes we feel bad about it. We feel shame or guilty that we didn't accomplish it. If any of you are on the resolution bandwagon, right? A lot of us are like, I'm going to get healthy. I'm going to get in shape. Those are big, general, sometimes really overwhelming goals. And what can help is simply moving small steps at a time, right? Maybe my goal is to, walk every day. But keep in mind that can be a lot if we're not used to moving our bodies in that way. So what are small steps that we can take to make that happen, right? So movement, very generally, is a change in position or posture or perspective. It has nothing to do with how you move your body, where you move your body, how large or small you move your body. It is just a shift. So I'm going to invite everybody here to move your body into comfort, right? Notice how you're sitting or standing or laying down right now, and do anything you can in your power to just bring a little bit more comfort into the moment. I always use myself as an example. I'm sitting on my foot. It's numb and I still don't pay attention. So I'm going to shift my body. I'm going to put my feet on the floor. And actually, as I'm doing this, it allows me to be more present to myself and to the moment. So Ask yourself when you can, how am I moving? Especially when you're feeling overwhelmed or maybe anxious, fearful, when you're feeling strong emotions, it can be very beneficial to stop. Ask yourself, how am I moving? Because the slightest shift in your movement can have huge impacts on those thoughts and how we're feeling and how we're thinking. So again, movement is defined as a change or shift in posture or position, right? So hopefully you're already exploring this a little bit, but I want to give you a moment to just move your body in any way it needs right now. So without me giving too much directive of what you need to do or how it should look, I want to encourage you to just kind of settle in. Our head is absolutely part of this, but when I say head, I particularly mean like the brain, right? And this part of our body, not necessarily mind, which is oftentimes where we associate mind. We're just going to try to draw attention to our body. Any emotions are okay, right? But just sensations, right? Anything you sense in your body, temperature, right? Am I cold? Am I hot? Maybe I'm comfortable. Are there any areas of tightness or tension? Any things that I say are like kind of really calling your attention, right? So we can always start there. We can tend to those parts and just, move from there. Again, with this directive of bringing more comfort to our bodies in this moment. And sometimes that can feel overwhelming. So if it feels more inviting to notice a neutral part of your body, a part that doesn't have pain or any emotion attached to it in this moment, maybe a part you don't pay attention to very often. I always use the example of my elbows or my earlobes, right? And just give yourself the opportunity to make contact, right? To notice those parts, if it means touching or just sensing the space around them. And then allow that movement to migrate, right? So I started with my elbows, but now I'm kind of slowly moving to my forearm, the biceps. And just open up to whatever movement feels possible from this inquiry, right? From just this place of bringing in more comfort or noticing a part of my body that's already there. And there might be some organic movement that comes from this. Usually it's a stretch, a bend. It might be a big breath, a yawn. There is no right way to do this. I'm not watching any of you. Chances are you're watching me. And so in real time, we're noticing, one, how our body is able to move, but two, how we can meet a need, right? We can bring more comfort, even on a very surface level. We can meet a need for ourselves through moving our bodies. Right. And just notice, I know it's only been a few moments, but just notice if anything is shifting, right? How just the slight change or movement in your posture, or just a breath, a good stretch, right? Is this having an impact? And what might that be? Some of the things, benefits, if you will, that you may feel as you start to move your body, right? Things to reflect on. These are the big three that I talk a lot about. I could speak forever on them, but these are the three that felt really pertinent to me that I wanted to bring into this space. So first off, when we move more, we feel more. Okay. What does that mean? Because I think physically we know what that means, right? Of course, when I move more, I'm going to feel it the next day. I don't mean physically. I actually mean emotionally. So both can happen at the same time. Obviously, there's the mind-body connection. But what happens is when we're not used to moving in certain ways, right? And then we engage in new movement. And it doesn't necessarily just mean like, oh, I took up skiing, right? Or I tried ice skating yesterday. It can be something as gentle as Tai Chi. It can be something trauma informed, even like a yoga class. If we're not used to moving our bodies in certain patterns or rhythms, when we begin to move in those ways, it's kind of a portal, right? That allows these emotions that we've been carrying or suppressing to come to the surface. And so for a lot of us, we can get very overwhelmed by it, right? I've had clients that say, oh, I was told to go take yoga. I did, and I broke down in class. I cried for hours afterwards. I'm never going back, right? Understandably, that's scary. But what isn't understood or even talked about or validated in that class usually is that it's acceptable. It's I hate to say the word normal, but it's kind of the norm. If you haven't been moving in a certain way, you're going to feel more, and it's going to feel intense. And that's not to stop anybody from moving. It's to be compassionate and gentle to the journey. So when we move more, again, we're thinking of it as kind of dredging up some of the segment, right? The like kind of at the riverbed, right? You kind of dredge up stuff, the sediment rises, and it takes a while for it to settle. It eventually settles, right? But that's kind of the emotions that are getting stirred. So it can be really helpful to understand how we're currently moving, how our body's currently patterned, the movements we shy away from, so that when we start to add movements into our body, we're more aware of how they could impact us. Hopefully that makes sense. And if people have questions, I will absolutely get to those in a little bit. So when we move more, we feel more emotionally and physically. And that's not a bad thing, but we want to, again, be gentle and compassionate to what is going to come up and find resources to deal with them, right? Whether it's talking to someone, moving with someone else, maybe you're in a program, right? Or meeting a therapist or a coach. What you feel is valid, and it should be validated. Another benefit of movement for mental health is empathy. When I know what it's like to be in my body, I can be more delicate and compassionate and more able to be with others in theirs. That doesn't mean that I'm going to see everybody's point of view. We can still disagree. We can still have differing opinions, but I'm not looking to control someone else's body. And if they're looking to control mine, then I can notice the difference, right? I can take ownership of my body or my boundaries or my health in whatever avenue that looks like. So empathy is not just for others, but it's for ourselves, right? We create more empathic bodies and minds when we learn to move more. Not better, just move more. And then resilience, which I was gonna kind of, I don't know, hyphenate or actually do away with resilience and just put recovery. Resilience is often talked about as this bouncing back. I don't see it that way. I think of it as a moving, regardless, moving forward, side, back, wherever. I'm a firm believer that a step back is not a setback, and that sometimes we have to step back. We have to move back to gain perspective, right? And so when we move more, we build a more robust vocabulary of movement in our bodies. We build more resilience, right? I like to think of it as a detour. So if there is one way to go from point A to point B, and there's an obstruction in the middle, you have two options. You can either go back to the beginning, or you can just sit and wait for the obstruction to clear, which could take hours or days. If you're in Chicago, I mean, it's never ending because we just have construction all the time. But adding in movement for a mental health perspective is actually about building more detours. So if I want to get from point A to point B, all of a sudden I have maybe 5 other avenues to get to point B. Maybe I have 20 different avenues. Maybe they're endless. And so as a movement pattern, that could even look like going outside, walking in my neighborhood, and taking a different route every time. I did that during the pandemic. I would go outside, I would walk in my neighborhood to get some fresh air and to move my mind. And I tried to take as many different routes as possible, knowing that I could still get back to my house. It was different for my body, and it was a game changer for my mind because I was really noticing nuances and new things every single time, keeping myself very present, trying not to be on like technology as I was doing it. So resilience and empathy are really huge for us as we're looking to recover through or from. And we can use our body to do that, right? We can explore new movements, new patterns in our body to resource and reference the resilience we're looking for, the agency we're looking to have in our thoughts and our mind. So that's really all I wanted to talk through. I want to offer just some simple movement practices, and then we'll open it up for some Q&A and some discussion. So I'm going to, again, stop my screen share. And I just want everybody to take a moment to just notice if they need anything with regard to like a break, a drink. It's lunch-ish time for some people. So if you're like, oh, I'm needing nourishment, whatever that looks like, give yourself permission to go get it or do it. And so the movement I actually want to bring today are just some kind of nervous system resets. So this isn't proprietary to movement therapy. These aren't even things that I've created, but these are movements that can be very, very helpful when we are feeling overwhelmed, stressed, to say the least. And I feel like offering them just as a little bit of a reset for the middle of our day can be really helpful. So follow along as you'd like, or you can just listen and save them for a later time. But the first thing I want to offer is actually a gentle hug. So I want you to just embrace your upper body. Okay, so just place your hands wherever it feels comfortable for you. Some of us might be higher up. I tend to keep them about like bicep level. Again, it's going to look different depending on, chest size and height, and just do what feels comfortable. And so we're just going to start with just a little squeeze, very gentle squeeze of our biceps, shoulders. Good. And just allow this to this might turn into a little bit of a rub or a massage. A little bit of a tap. Sometimes that's more soothing for people. This is also a great place to start because when we are closed in around our torso, that's when we tend to feel how restricted our breathing is. So rather than starting with deep breathing, we're meeting ourselves in kind of this tightness. Sometimes it feels like protection, constriction. And then when we breathe, we can notice our breath. So in this position, I want you to, again, just notice your breath and just invite in some air, breathe in through our nose, blow out through your mouth. Just become aware of where you are holding your breath, where you feel your breath. So sometimes this is called the oxytocin hug, because regardless of who we hug, we release oxytocin, and that's a feel-good chemical. So this is a great way to just bring some grounding, some presence, and some comfort to ourselves and to our nervous systems. Good. So then we've got a little bit of a breath. And as we move our arms down a little bit, we can also find some regulation if it feels good for you, to put a hand over your sternum, apply just a little bit of pressure, nothing too harsh. And think about breathing into the palm of your hand. The beauty of this practice is that if you are feeling hypo-aroused, right, a little bit more low energy, lethargic, dissociated, it can actually increase your energy and awareness. But if we're feeling hyper-aroused, agitated, anxious, overwhelmed, it can actually calm down the nervous system, right? Same practice either way. So it's just a very simple pressure on the sternum, Breathing into that part of the chest, blowing it out. Good. So I'm going to offer two more. So the third one is a good old shake, which depending on where you are, how you're feeling, may not feel soothing in the moment. It's okay. Just kind of watch. I always start with my hands or my fingers, toes, an extremity, right? Something kind of away from my body. Just allow myself to dispel, extinguish, externalize any just residual charge. And even if you're not feeling overwhelmed, a good shake is just a good reset. You know, our pets do it, animals do it all the time, especially when they're enduring some type of traumatic situation. We don't. We constrict even more, and that's really not the answer. So just allow a good shake our shoulders, chest, our head, shaking my legs, my feet. And the last one that I'll offer is a soothing rhythm. So we were all reared, ideally, to have some type of soothing, right? Not all of us were given that, but this is the opportunity to bring that to your inner child, if you will. And it's either a rock or a pat, typically. How you can choose is putting your hand over your chest and give yourself the opportunity to feel a pat on your chest or a tap, or a rubbing, like a circular kind of massaging. And chances are one will feel better for you. And I'm going to invite you to indulge in the one that feels better. So I'll show both just so you get an idea of what it can look like. So if a rubbing feels good, or kind of this like rocking, soothing motion, you might find it really soothing to rock your body. Right? And so it might be a little bit of a side to side, or forward and back, right? This kind of mimics sometimes the soothing, right? The rocking that we may have received when we were younger. And depending on how you're feeling, how overwhelmed or anxious your thoughts might be, you might speed up the motion, right? And you can slow it down when you feel ready to do so. For those of you that felt more of like compelled to tap or pat, you can do it all over your body. You just kind of start in one place, tap or squeeze, tap or squeeze. And again, this idea of migrating, right? That you can tap or rub all the way around your body. So I realize I'm going through these quickly, but these are very kind of surface level movements, right? This isn't even tapping into what I feel, how I feel, where I hold an emotion. Those are a little bit more advanced and can be accessible to everybody, but overwhelming if we're not used to connecting to our body in a compassionate, non-judgmental way. So this is this is the way to really start to integrate and talk to and listen to my body, right? Become familiar with the landscape of my body before jumping into the, full blown, this is how I hold something. This is where I hold it. This is what it looks like. But this is how it starts. Just building a relationship with our body, integrating, feeling it, inviting it into the conversation. And when you've had enough, going back to your day, right? Like we did this all the time, it would be too overwhelming, right? So it's just in little spurts. But yeah, I want to just share my contact information if anybody wants to reach out. But other than that, I'm realizing the time. I want to make sure that I can answer questions or maybe elaborate on something that I kind of threw out there that you might have more inquiry or question around. And if I need to clarify anything that I've said, please let me know, because I know I'm kind of going through it quickly.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you, Erica. You didn't see me, but I was basically nodding along through your whole talk. I feel like I could just listen to you for hours, and I'm just so grateful that you are going to be a part of our community and helping us to bring movement and make us more aware of our bodies and how our bodies can help us in recovery and with our mental health. So thank you so much. I wanted to just speak to the intention and guiding principle. One of our intentions and guiding principles here at the She Recovers Foundation is recovery is a journey to wholeness. We learn to take care of our body, mind, emotions, and spirit. So, this whole subject and our movement practices, again, in whatever way, however that looks, I think are just so incredibly important. So thank you again for that amazing talk and those movements. I feel, I don't know, just a little more clear and a little more upright in doing these.
Yeah.
So let's move to the questions. We've got
sure. Yeah, I see some.
Yeah, comments and questions. First comment, wow, I love that you've redefined movement for me. I also appreciate you saying singing is movement, and you don't have to be a good singer to do that. I agree. I know singing is good for my body. I feel more connected spiritually and better in my body when I sing. I'm going to make this a regular practice of my recovery. So, next one is actually a question. Do you have any advice for this, who may be recovering from perfectionism, who may avoid movement like dance or yoga for fear of not doing it well? I want to dance, but I've labeled myself as a terrible dancer, so I don't give myself permission to engage in that practice.
Well, believe it or not, I have engaged in that as well, right? So just because I call myself a dancer doesn't mean, actually, because I identify as a dancer, it comes with all of that too. Being sent to the back of the room, right? Not being up at the front. Like, I think that is the double-edged sword when it comes to putting myself out there as a dance therapist, because I know that it comes with curiosity and it also comes with a lot of stigma. So the first thing I would say is, much like we did today, practice, if possible, whenever possible, connecting to your body where you are able to just be with it, noticing when the judgment comes in, period, right? So if I'm working with a client, my first line of action wouldn't be, well, start taking a class, right? Expose yourself to it and it'll go away. Because while sometimes that works, exposure therapy isn't for everybody, right? So with this approach, I always say, let's start off gentle. And so maybe there's a piece of music that you really resonate with. I don't know if anybody's seen this like TikTok challenge where it's like challenging people not to move to 90s music. Have you seen this? It's like hits from the 80s and 90s and people listen to it. You could like see them like struggling not to dance to it. It's funny, but as a movement therapist, I'm like, oh, this is so horrible. Like you have to move your body. So find a good piece of music, maybe in the privacy of your own home, alone, so that you are with your own judge, not even with other people that might judge you, because our inner critic is like its own thing, right? And just notice what movement comes up. Like allow your body to connect to a rhythm in its own way, right? And starting there, I know it might not seem like, well, how was that dance? But it's getting yourself comfortable moving your body. And there's some confidence that comes with that. So if and when you are ready to venture into a studio, there are things you can do, right? Maybe there's someone that'll go with you. Maybe it's someone you're familiar with, maybe starting online, take a class or do something online to just turn off your camera, get your body moving. So we're trying to eliminate as much of that judgment as possible. But I'm with you. It's really difficult. Any movement or art always comes with judgment. And it's something that, I'm trying to break down. I know a lot of expressive therapists are really trying to piece that out, but it's a hard thing to combat in our society. So I really wish you all the best on that journey. I know you can do it. It's just baby steps.
Beautiful. Thanks, Erica. This question, I think you may have kind of answered this next question, but I'll just read it anyway. I think I'm scared of noticing what is going on in my body and I tend to shut down. Is there anything I can do to start gently coming back to my body and feel safe again in my body?
Yeah, so I'll just reiterate that, and again, even as a dance therapist, I have felt this too. I'm in my own therapy and I'm like, do I want to feel that? I don't know. I think the reminder that we can feel what we choose to feel, right? And we can also turn off what we choose to turn off. It doesn't mean that it's not going to exist, right? And then it's up to us how we manage what comes up to the surface, right? How we manage that in a healthy or productive way is what I like to say. So focusing more on the external of the body, kind of like what we did today, maybe playing a little bit more with the boundaries outside, right? How far can I reach my body? How big can I make my body? How small can I make my body? Really working with the posture of the body before we go inside, right? Before we go to those proprioceptive, interoceptive kind of what could be nice, ooey gooey pieces, but feel a little unknown. Because if you think about it, we can't see those parts. This I can see. I can see my arm. And when it moves, I can feel safe, I think, for me, to move it in ways that feel good. Going into places of my body that I can't see can feel a little scary, right? Just like when someone's like, oh, it's, this organ, I can't see that. That feels a little elusive. I know it's there. We can't see our emotions, right? But if we start to interact with our body, eventually it kind of infiltrates, right? So we can go from the outside in and start to work with that landscape.
Wow, that's amazing. That's so powerful. I love that. Okay, here's one that's fairly specific.
Yeah.
I sometimes get this sensation like my throat is tensing and tightening up. I feel like it has something to do with silencing myself to survive the past. Do you have any suggestions for moving this part of my body to release the tension?
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. So I will say this. When we feel something in a certain part of our body, our go-to is to interact with that part of the body, right? So we think, well, I'm having trouble with my throat in this case, so I'm going to go there. Right? I'm going to start moving the throat, singing, talking. I actually oftentimes find it more beneficial to go to other places first. So since you said throat, which is a little bit lower, but it's all connected, right? Our jaw is actually connected to our hips. There's fascia. I mean, our whole body's connected, right? But there's fascia that actually connects from the jaw all the way down the core into the pelvic floor. So what I tell clients, or what I'll do with clients, is to actually start to engage your hips. And that can be any way you like. It might be more of postural, kind of arching, or kind of looks like a little bit of a twerk. Again, you can put on music and circle them. You can figure eight them. You can kind of, just lean into a hip. I know you can't see what I'm doing, but, just kind of shift your hips side to side. So it's not a dance. It's just a posture. Like, I don't know if anybody ever played Sonic or Sega, but that was Sonic the Hedgehog's pose. He would kind of like lean into a hip and then, tap his foot. Like, come on, I'm waiting. That shows probably my age. So anyway, so interact with the hips, especially if you're feeling a disconnect or a tensing or a tightening in the throat or jaw. I posted this not that long ago, but tight lips, tight hips. And so if there's something that we've been conditioned to not say, or we've been silenced in whatever way that means, either by ourselves or someone else, we will also find a correlation, or tend to find a correlation in the hips, and they tend to be very tight. So we can start to kind of find the flow in our hips, in our spine, and then again, work its way up to the body. You can also just apply a little bit of pressure, massage, right? Yawn, open the mouth. It doesn't have to be sound. You can hum, right? Again, that idea of singing might be something that feels a little bit more accessible. Anybody that's into chakras, right? Finding your root chakra when you breathe, kind of breathing into the lower abdomen, all stuff that can help us verbalize, believe it or not.
Amazing. That's great. It's so fascinating, right? There's just
Yeah, that like,
so
even
much
though
to
that's the
learn.
place that we want to work on, that there are
Yeah.
other areas of the body that can actually help. And those might feel more accessible. They might not. Then you can use them together,
Yeah.
or gosh, even apply with a little bit of heat. Some people say, like, I don't notice my hips. I can't feel that part of my body for many different reasons. And so I just say, like, start with temperature, right? Sit on something warm so you can just feel the sensing of that body part, right? Like, I don't know if anybody has ever sat in a car with heated or air conditioned seats. It's a very strange sensation sometimes, but you start to feel it and you're like, what is this warmth coming from down here? I felt the air conditioning once and I was like, it almost felt wet. It was a little scary. And then I was like, oh, this is air conditioning. Oh, this is nice. It was the weirdest sensation. But these are ways that we can start to interact with our body, and
Yeah.
maybe bring some humor.
I love that. Yeah, I find that just that check in with senses is what am I
Mm,
seeing? What am I tasting? What am I smelling? How does my skin feel? All of that can just be really helpful to ground and to get into the body. We do that often in She Recovers Dance. And somebody did have a question just about She Recovers Dance. I'll just answer it quickly. We've got about 8 more minutes. So
yeah.
again, if anyone has a question, if they want to put it into the Q&A, please do so. And because we have a few more minutes here, but so She Recovers Dance is our weekly practice every Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is an hour that we create. I like to call it a dance circle. We have great playlists, and the invitation is to come as you are, participate and move as you feel, like you want to that day. There is, cameras on, cameras off. Some people come and listen to music and rest. Some people walk. Some
Mm.
people dance on their feet. Some people dance on their seat. So it really is, the goal is to create a space where we can come and move together. And it's a wonderful community, wonderful practice. And again, now we have 8, including me, facilitators, and all of us are going to be take turns in 2023 facilitating. So if anyone hasn't joined our practice, I just sincerely invite you to do so. And again, Erica is going to be advising us and helping us improve that practice, improve that session. And I'll also say that Erica and I are going to be doing a workshop sometime in 2023 that is coming down the pipes. So the
Mm.
best way to find out about this, of course, is to go to our website and join our newsletter. That pop-up will come up as soon as you hit the site. So join our newsletter, all of our event updates and announcements and workshops and all that kind of stuff. You can learn about those there. So okay, another question here, Erica. Do
Sure.
you have a personal practice or ritual you do to ground before a challenging situation or doing something like public speaking? I'm naturally
Mm.
anxious and sometimes I get a little out of my body before these things.
Well, you're not alone in that. Um, so asking about my personal practice, you know, I know a lot of people will kind of swear by, if you're familiar with like power posing, kind of like taking on this strong stance. I don't personally do that, only because strength to me doesn't always come from a certain pose, right? It can be very organic. My strength one day feels or looks different than maybe strength another day. So rather than, taking on a certain pose or putting myself in a certain posture, some of the things that I do are things that we did today, right? Like regulating my nervous system, certainly a good shake. I'm a rocker, so like rocking just kind of comes intuitively now to dispel some of that nervous energy. But something that I actually did add in my book, it was a practice that was gifted by another dance movement therapist. I think I can type the answer into your question. It's called womping, WOMMP. Womping. Very briefly, I'll say, so the W is for water. So we want to take a sip of water, not too much, especially if our, tummy gets a little anxious, just enough to like moisten the mouth, right? Feel the water go down our throat. Oxygen is taking a nice breath, whatever that looks like, even if I can't breathe, right? We're just going, right, breath. The M's are for midline and marching. So we want to cross the midline, right? And then march our body, right? So we can march side, right leg, right leg, right arm, left arm, and then this cross lateral motion. The P, I know I'm going through this real fast, but the P is pretzel. So you can kind of twist your arms, you can cross your legs. You want to kind of like contort your body. And the reason that we do that is because it gets each side of the brain online and then causes activity across the corpus callosum. So it enhances focus, it keeps us present, brings us into the moment. And then we're also meeting those basic sensing needs, right? Of like taking a breath, drinking some water. That was introduced to me as a grad student, and I find so much value in that. Again, it helps to practice it before we get to that intense emotion, so it feels comfortable in your body. I wouldn't say do it right before you go on stage, not having practiced it before that. But see if that helps get some of those practices in your body, and before you go to speak in front of a group of people, you will find it much more accessible. So that's kind of my go-to practice. I've been doing it for like 10 years. It seems to help me.
That's awesome. I actually, from reading your book, showed a group on retreat that little technique, which everyone thought was quite fascinating. So,
right.
And it's got such a great name, Womping.
Womping. I did it with a client once, and I don't know how, but it morphed into a womping elephant. Like we became like these like heavy weighted, like 4-legged elephants. I don't know. It was fantastic. And it was very recuperating. So,
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Great. Okay. Let's see. We have one more question, and then I'd like to read a few more comments before we end. One of the techniques you explained was breathing into your palm. Can you explain this in more depth, as I struggle to understand the concept?
Yeah. So when I say breathing into the palm, it is a little bit more mind focused. We want to send the breath to this part of the body, right? I know that seems like, what? How do I do that? But just right here, right? So we want to feel the weight of the palm or the hand. And as I breathe, I want to focus the breath there. Right. So I'm just feeling my hand kind of rise and fall. Yeah. So you can really do it with any part of your body if you're using the mind-body connection, right? Technically, I can say, I'm going to breathe into my small toe. It sounds strange, and you're not going to feel your big toe or small toe move, but it's this intention, right, of kind of sending my breath wherever I want it to go. That, yes, it's centralized here, but we can use the flow of our breath to really reach any part of our body.
I agree. Yeah, I use that a lot in yoga as well.
Yeah. Sorry, I saw someone wrote, what's the P for? Pretzel. Pretzel. So like thinking about making a pretzel with your body.
Awesome. All right. Some of the comments, I just want to share them with everybody. I love the invitation to just notice and not manipulate my movements. This feels freeing. This is so good. Best lunch break ever with this webinar. Thank you. So inspiring and enlightening. This is so profound, mind-blowing. So there you go. There's some of those comments. So thank you so much, Erica, for being with us here today. It was, like I said, just such a pleasure and so interesting to have you here and have you teach us these little things. And again, it really is about reframing movement. I love that. And I think the more that we can reframe and allow people to have their own experience, the more people will join in this practice that's so available for all of us. So thank you so much. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us before we sign off today?
No, just thank you guys so much for your openness to this. And, sometimes people feel like, well, but what do I do? What does it look like? How, give me some tangible. And that's the thing is like, all it takes is a moment of awareness. So just whenever, especially we're feeling super taxed in our minds, like that is a great time to just refocus on below the neck, right? How is this manifesting in my body? And starting with whatever movement is presenting, right? Meeting ourselves in what we're currently feeling and then moving through that in some way. It feels elusive because it's a little unknown for a lot of us, but it really is a game changer. So I just appreciate this community for being open to that and looking for ways to, support their recovery. And I know that you mentioned going through the mailing list for She Recovers. I do have a promo code for to purchase Body Aware. There will be a discount. It's not available until next week, but I will make sure I share it with She Recovers. And so through their mailing list, if you want access to that code, just stay connected to either one of us and we'll make that happen.
Yes. Awesome. That's so great. Looking forward to that. And again, we'll post that we'll put that into our newsletter. I wanted to just say that, just what you reiterated there. One of my favorite Mary Oliver quotes is, "Attention is the beginning of devotion." So again, just that idea of placing attention, placing our awareness on our bodies, on our movement, is a wonderful first step to bringing the body into our healing and our recovery. So
yeah, and so much of movement isn't done through awareness. That's why this is kind of like I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
So we have to take ourselves out of our autopilot movements, right? And move from intention, which is uncomfortable for many of us. So thank you for that quote.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Our next Mental Health Monday is going to be February 6th. Speaker to be announced, but thanks again so much for joining us. Have a beautiful Monday, and we will see you soon. Bye, everybody.